G'day everyone. I'm here today in America with Captain Dadpool. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Yeah, it was a bit annoying with the time difference, but we got there eventually.
So to make sure I had some
So
coffee in me first.
yeah. So I came across Captain Dadpool on TikTok first, and then, well, actually no, it was on the one of the podcasts. I can't remember if it was Atheist Experience or Truth Wanted. You're on one of those, and that's
It's
where I heard
atheist
your name.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, and then I've come across you on a live on TikTok, and then followed you on YouTube. So yeah,
Nice.
it was that's what because I watch all those ones anyway. Like Atheist Experience and all that, and follow different YouTubers. Hey all. um,
Hi to
so
everybody in the chat.
yeah. So they're all your friends, I think.
A couple.
Did you want to give us a bit of a run? You were in the military, yeah? Is that right?
Yeah, I was in the Army as an infantryman. I was active duty for 3.5 years, and I was in the National Guard for 13 years. Or no, I was inactive reserve for 4 years, and then National Guard for 6 years. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And how'd you find that?
Uh, it was good and bad. It,
Yeah,
a lot of it
being away
sucked,
from
but it made me who I am today. So
being away from
uh,
home's never fun, eh?
yeah, I did a year-long deployment in Iraq, and I had just gotten married. Uh, so like our first like Christmas and anniversary and everything. We're divorced now, so it doesn't matter. But at the time,
Yeah, right. Um, so what do you do now then?
uh, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I have four small boys. It's summer, so they're not in school. Wife works a lot, so I stay home, take care of the kids in the house,
Okay,
and try to make
nice.
some side coin when I can.
Yeah, I noticed you make a lot of like swords and things. Do you do that just for a hobby, or do you actually make it for people as well?
A little bit of both. I mostly just make things like there's a that camera. There's Daedric
Oh
dagger
yeah.
made. I have a friend named Andrew Seidel who asked if I could make him a gavel, like a judge's gavel that looks like Thor's hammer. So
Mhm.
I made in this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nice.
Um, so yeah, I make things just because I want one, or I'll make them like for friends, and I'll sell them occasionally.
So say if someone like where I'm in Australia wanted something made, it would be hard to get it over here, wouldn't it? With the import,
Uh,
getting it through customs.
I don't know actually. I'm not sure how that would
Because
work.
I was looking at the I don't know. Remember Hulk from Thor Ragnarok? How he had that axe.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at something like that, but that'd be a bit hard to get through customs anyway. Even if it was just the size of that gavel, but yeah, it'd be a bit hard to get through, I think.
yeah. I think it would.
So, what made you start TikTok?
Um, when I became a stay-at-home dad, when the pandemic hit, um, my kids were in uh, daycare and only had one in school at the time. So daycare and school shut down. My wife and I worked together in the same place for 3 years. And so suddenly we had four kids and nothing to do with them or nowhere to put them. So it was like one of us has to quit. Since three of them are mine and one is hers, I was like,
Okay.
I'll do it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I downloaded TikTok because I was just bored and losing my mind, and I gained a very unexpected following pretty fast.
You think that's because of the content you make?
Yeah, apparently. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't know. For viewers who don't know, I'm an atheist. I'm a former very devout Christian. I went to college to be a Bible scholar and or a pastor or something. I didn't know, but that my education ultimately led me to stop believing in God and leave Christianity. So I made a little TikTok about that. And apparently, there's a lot of people really interested in that topic. So I don't just have a lot of questions about like the Bible and church history and things like that, and but also people wondering what it's like to leave your religion, how to do it. If they have a family that's devout or Christian still, they're like, how do I tell my family I don't want to be Christian anymore? And of course, we got all the Christian nationalism drama here in the U.S. So people want to know how to fight against that. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there curious about what I talk about on my channel.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I watch a lot of your channel, but it's not. I don't think it's as big here. I think there's a lot more of it in the US as far as
Yeah.
like with atheist experience and all that. We don't really have a lot of those podcasts or anything here, and people just sort of go about doing the thing. But
It sounds nice though.
it does, yeah. It's just
It sounds really nice.
sometimes people are like, "Oh, come with me," and I'm like, "No," or they try to push on you a little bit, but yeah, I sort of just let it go by the wayside. But yeah, because I predominantly make films, produce movies. That's why the name of the channel. But
Nice.
yeah, I like to get different people on. Sometimes I have a segment called Filmmakers After Dark, so I get filmmakers on and they just discuss what they're doing. But I just thought wouldn't mind getting you on and just having a chat to someone different for a bit. So I appreciate you jumping on. And yeah, so I mean, obviously you don't get a chance to watch a lot of movies, but I had a little discussion I think with you the other day on YouTube on who you think would win out of The Punisher or John Wick, and it's because I'm looking at trying to make a fan film maybe about that. And
Oh,
I think John Wick maybe. I know he's got because the Punisher's probably better with guns, but I think John Wick's better hand to hand maybe. But it's a bit of a dilemma I'm having.
yeah, that's a tough one. I might think. Now I want to do all kinds of crazy research on like
Yeah, okay.
their like what fighting styles they're trained in and all that, because I have a long background in martial arts as well. So I'm always curious. Like, oh, he's trained in this. That's a good style. He's trained in this. That's good. He's trained in that. That one's like. Um,
Well, I think John Wick's trained in, I think it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it might have been judo or something as well, because when Halle Berry come on, I think the second one, they said, "Oh, we hope you're prepared for John Wick training," and they had to train her up as well. So
yeah, and that's important because um, judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu they're grapple based, ground
yeah,
based fighting styles, and 90% of the time in a one-on-one fight, that's what
yeah,
happens. You end up on the ground. It's not like in the movies where they're standing up throwing punches and kicks the whole time. Almost always it goes to the ground and you're rolling around. So if he has more training in that, I'd say yeah, he probably does have the upper hand.
yeah, okay. So yeah, it's just something I thought I put that out there a few years ago on my Facebook page, and people are like they're saying they're a little bit confused on who might win. So it's always something I've wanted to I was wondering about. But yeah, I've got this podcast as well that I was mentioning to you before as well. So it's a supernatural film that I'm doing, but I want to do a podcast of each character. So at the moment, I'm doing an origin story of each character because there's like a Kitsune, there's a witch, vampires, warlock, that type of thing, and I want to do an overlying podcast that tells the story, and then I was thinking of doing one for each character. So, and I wouldn't mind if we can work it out, possibly using your voice for the podcast if you'd be up for that.
Yeah, sure. Sounds fun.
Have you done much of that before?
Voice acting? No, I've done lots of acting, but never done voice acting. I think I could pull it off though.
Yeah, okay. So that's being written up as well at the moment, and hopefully I should be able to get that some part of it to you pretty soon.
Nice.
So what else? What else do you normally do? We can get into some of the religion stuff later, but yeah, I don't know a lot about it anyway. I just usually go from what I hear off the podcast, because I've never really been. I've been to church a couple of times, but I've never really. We weren't pushed into it. We got the choice to go or not. So
Nice.
that was an advantage.
Sorry, I was reading the comments.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I'm still, like, even though I'm not a Christian anymore, I'm still fascinated by the history of the Bible and how it came together, and the history of the church, especially in like the first, second, third century, and how what shaped Christianity today, because it's something that has such a big impact on our day to day life over here on the states. Um, so I still like to read books on that, read articles on that, and learn as much as I can because it's still just it's objectively fascinating to me. It really is. I don't do it just to dunk on Christianity. It's genuinely.
Yeah.
I get asked that all the time. You're not a Christian anymore. Why do you still study it? Like because it's interesting. It's history.
Yeah.
Boys.
Well, the
Second, yell at my children.
yeah, that's all right.
All right.
One thing I do find interesting, though, a lot of films I've been watching lately, even on Netflix, have a lot of religious connotations in them, or it seems like nearly every film I put on has got something, and I don't know if that has to be done by the studio, or if it's just something that's becoming more the norm now. It's either people are talking about it, or it's it's uh, it's something that's being sort of pushed on them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It could also be like a case of what's it, I always have the hardest time with this word parallelomania, where you just make all you can make these connections between film and religion um, because it's easy to do. You have like a savior, like there's a connection
Yeah,
there. Um, Fighting against evil. Like, oh, and any Christian will watch like John Wick and be like, "It's Jesus fighting the demons," because
yeah.
people are dumb. But so it's easy to make
Um,
connections, but there are a lot of video or movies that were made with that intent, like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the Chronicles of Narnia. The movie obviously was written by C.S. Lewis, and a great movie, but it was made to be a Christian allegory.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I think I've only ever seen it once because I predominantly make horror and predominantly watch horror, but I've noticed a lot of them now even have aspects of that in it. It's either it's mentioned or it's people who believe it are being killed by you know um, whatever it is, and it doesn't annoy me as such. I just don't think that it's needed a lot of the time. I think people are just
yeah,
because I know a couple of people here make some films and they said, "Oh, look, I'm happy to make it, but it has to have I have to add a little bit of this in," and it's kind of like, well,
why?
it's sort of yeah. Do you make it with that person to do that, or so yeah, but trying to change their minds is really hard as well,
Oh,
and
bad. So
I'm
more
actually
movies, huh?
yeah,
Sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
actually what. No, so I was actually watching some YouTube people on paranormal investigators.
Oh
There's
man.
there's some people here that do it. So I'm thinking of doing because found footage is quite a popular genre as well. Obviously, Blair Witch was one of the first ones to kick it off, but I'm looking at
Mhm.
doing a found footage film, but in the paranormal investigation space. So I have them doing that, but it becomes a found footage horror film. But yeah, I don't know. What's your take? Because one of the ones that I'm watching now, they said although it's real, there's no guarantee we're going to find anything paranormal, and they put that disclaimer out before they do it. What's your take on all that? It's obviously a lot. I know a lot of it's set up. I've seen chairs be pulled with strings and things like
Yeah.
that. But do you think any of
Um,
it's real?
I don't. I'm a staunch naturalist,
Okay.
um, which I know may not be very fun to a lot of people, but um, yeah, I think a lot of those are just it's either a people playing tricks. There's TikToks that like expose a bunch of those too, but it's also just things happening that scare people, and then your brain automatically makes these connections uh, because at that moment you're in survival mode. So your brain literally goes into a look for signs of danger. So you hear a weird noise, your brain immediately goes to the worst possible scenario. It's not a stick fell and caused a sound in the woods. It's there's something out hunting me, trying to kill me.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of that. It's purely psychological, but it's still fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, see, I'm a little bit like that. I'm sort of people are like, oh, because I worked with a guy that was like, no, I've seen a ghost. I'm like, well, I don't believe in it until I actually see something, So
Mhm.
unless I see it or I hear it or whatever, then it's kind of like, yeah, well, a bit like aliens as well. That's a whole other thing. It's it's. I actually probably believe aliens exist more than God and the supernatural do, but
Oh, definitely. I think
I guess
it's highly probable that several alien species of aliens exist on several planets. Have you ever heard of the Fermi paradox?
no.
FERMI paradox. You should look it up. Um, basically, it's a
FERMI, did you say?
mathematical equation. FERMI, I think it's spelled paradox.
All right.
It's basically a result of a mathematical equation given the number of planets in the solar system that uh, it would be statistically incredibly improbable for there to be that many planets and not have forms of life because there's a lot of them that have conditions that are capable of sustaining life. So
Mm-hmm.
they definitely should. But they're so far away, we'll probably never come into contact with them because time moves so much differently in space. Um, then there's all kinds of theories about that, like it's called the Black Forest theory, and then an arc barrier. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling now.
No, it's fine. It's good because
I'm finishing my coffee.
being in isolation, I need stuff to look up because I alternate between my computer and Netflix. So,
Nice.
what do you think? Do you think Area 51 actually? Well, it probably exists, but do you think there's actually any aliens there?
I don't think so.
No.
Um, we have that in the states so much. Like the White House is releasing a statement on Area 51, and people start freaking out about it, and then it turns out it's like nothing. Like bring us out an alien body or
Mm.
a spaceship. Prove to us that it's an actual alien spaceship and not something y'all fucking made.
Yeah.
Then we can talk. Then we can talk. But
Yeah.
they always just let these leaked documents. It's always a leaked document. Cool. Writing on a paper. Proof of aliens? Really? No, I'm going to need a little
Yeah.
bit more than that.
Yeah. That's right. I think I saw something was either on Facebook or TikTok the other night, and it was someone interviewing a supposed alien, and the alien spoke English, and then they're like, oh, that person's a good actor and dressed up well, But
Yeah.
it's like, how does an alien all of a sudden understand and know how to speak English? And yeah,
That's another thing too is that there's so much money to be made in that. So
mhm.
people are absolutely like jumping on that, trying to make it seem as real as possible because it's highly profitable. There's a lot of people that eat that up.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing with horror, like with the horror genre as well. You've got so many subgenres like sci-fi and supernatural and slasher that's why people do that because they can make money. Movies can make a bit of money from that. So
You know,
and
a movie I've been
like you
wanting
said,
to rewatch. It just came on Netflix. The 13th Ghost.
13 Ghosts. That's a really good movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite horror movies, and I just saw it on Netflix. I was like, I haven't watched that in years. I need to rewatch it.
Is it on Netflix? Is it?
I think so.
I had to go out and buy a copy. Couldn't find it
Oh,
anywhere.
that's such a good one.
My other favourite one is Deliver Us from Evil with Eric Bana. You seen that one?
No, I haven't.
So it's based on true events of a cop called Ralph Scarci who ended up apparently this person got possessed and he ended up becoming a real life demon hunter. And there was when Eric Bana was cast, they played the tape of the real exorcism that was done on this person, but Eric Bana wouldn't let the cast or crew listen to it because of how bad it was. So it's him actually playing that character, but it's based on real events. So
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know if exorcisms are real either, but this is apparently based on that. So if you get a chance to watch it, it's actually quite freaky. So it's
I'll try that one.
that. I don't think that's on Netflix, but I've got it. I don't know. You can get it, I think, just on DVD or Blu-ray or something like that.
What's it called one more time?
Deliver Us from Evil.
All right. There it is.
I
I'll
was
check it
watching
out.
last night on Shudder about found footage, and they were saying how Blair Witch, like, although they made it for 60,000, because of the marketing, a company ended up buying it for $1 million, and it made like over 200 million at the box office. And when they went to release it in Canada, they put up the missing people posters, but there was actually a real life missing person case in Canada, so they had to take them down.
Oh wow!
And and then there was cannibal Holocaust or something. And when the guy cast, he said that those actors can't act anything else for a whole other year because they have to act as though they were missing. So the cops got involved, and he had to prove they were still alive. Otherwise, he's going to get charged for murder and that type of stuff. So that's how they made. That's how they made a lot of their money because of that. And then Paranormal Activity came out, the first one, and that went crazy as well. So
yeah, and the budget on those are so low.
Oh yeah,
they made those movies for almost nothing.
Yeah,
people ate them up.
I mean, Blair Witch wasn't really that hard because they did a lot of it themselves, like the producers, and that shook the tent and stuff, so they were able to get away with it. It was unscripted, but yeah, they were able to do it for pretty cheap. So, like you said, people like to watch that stuff, and I guess that's why it's so popular, even though a lot of it might not exist. But there were some people that were going to come on when I was going to do live with you who are Christians here, but they were like, "Oh, I've watched some of his stuff and I could poke holes in everything." I said, "Well, come on and poke holes in it then." But they're
of course they can.
They're staunch Christians, so they're like, nah. They're like those people that, like yourself, you might be a little bit open to stuff, but they're not at all. They're like, nah, it's this way or the highway. So yeah, it's. Whereas me, I'm that's why I listen to those other shows, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe this happens, maybe it doesn't, but it's majority of it I don't believe. But again, I've never read the Bible either, so it's maybe I should. I saw something. Who was it? It was it Matt? He said 82% of atheists know the Bible better than Christians.
Yeah, it's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Most Christians don't read the Bible. They go to church, and this is a big problem with Christianity is they don't read it themselves. They don't do the research themselves. They go to church, and they're told what it says by a pastor, and they don't fact check him. They just take him. He's a man of God. You don't question him. It says whatever he says is true. And so they just go with it, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm a Christian now, and Jesus." And I'm like, okay. Do you know that substitutionary atonement is condemned in the Old Testament? Because that's all Christianity is entirely based on substitutionary atonement. But it's condemned multiple times in the Old Testament. Like, you can't kill somebody you can't sacrifice somebody for the sins of another person. It literally says that in the book of Ezekiel. So then Jesus comes around and dies for everyone's sins. Like, God sends him to do that. It makes no sense. So no, Christianity is just inherently problematic in its own book, and they'll never know that because they don't actually read it. And I don't blame them. It's not a fun book to read unless you're a nerd like me, but
no, the only times I've been there, it's sort of like, for me, they cherry pick all the good parts, because when I listen to those podcasts, it's like, well, what about the ones where it talks about all these other bad things that happen? But every time I'd go there, they'd only talk about the good parts. So whether the pastor's purposely cherry picking, so that, like yourself, unless you go through and read the whole thing and then you're like, oh, you deconvert, you're not going to know, because you're only learning about the good parts.
Yeah, there's a book in the Bible called the Book of Amos. It's a short book, and you will probably never hear a sermon preached from it. I don't think I've ever, in my 15 years of going to church multiple times a week, I don't think I've ever heard a sermon preached from the Book of Amos. It's because it's God saying, he's telling his children, the Israelites, you're falling away from me, you're disappointing me, so I'm going to take all of your food and starve you. And it's, oh, you still won't return to me. Well, now I'm going to take all of your water from you. Oh, you won't come. So I'm going to send people to go and kill your young men. Oh, you still won't turn to me. Well, then I'm going to let you all die of a plague. Like, that's what God is doing to his chosen, loved children. He's beating them into submission to get them to love. Like, that doesn't sound like a loving God. That sounds like a tyrannical overlord.
Yeah.
Which is what. So yeah, but you won't hear a sermon preached on that from that book.
And I've heard something about a book called the Book of Enoch. Is that even part of the Bible?
No, Enoch is it's considered pseudepigraphical. So it's written. So okay, here's how literature worked in the ancient world. What they would do is they would take a story and then they would expound upon it. So the Book of Enoch is basically, so you have in Genesis the creation and then the flood where God kills everybody. Well, what happens in between them? There's not a whole lot that happens in between those events. So the Book of Enoch is an entire book about what happened in between those two events. So um, basically, what happens is angels looked upon the women, came down, raped them. The children gave birth to giant babies. They started eating each other, and that's why God had to kill everybody. Um, he also took Enoch on a tour uh, of the heavens and a tour of hell, or what was understood to be hell at the time, is very different than what we understand it today. But yeah, no, it's not biblical. It's written in the second century BCE, so much later than about 500 or 600 years after Genesis was written. But yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Because I said to someone the other day, I said, "Well, okay, who created the dinosaurs then? Because apparently what God's only not 2,000 years old or however old." I said,
yeah,
"So who created them?" And I said, "If he wasn't around then," they said, "Oh, he's always been around." I said, "Well, it can't have been, if according to you guys." So they couldn't answer it. They were just like, "Well, I don't know. They just evolved." I'm like, "Yeah, but then you get into the whole evolution side of things." So it
yeah,
falls down in a lot of places. It's and then I said, okay, and then I said to them, "What about the flood?" They go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, how did kangaroos and koalas get from Mount Ararat to Australia?" I said, "Kangaroos can't hop on water."
yep,
I said, "Did Noah take a detour and drop them off?" But they couldn't explain that either. They're like, "Oh, they just arrived there." I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, it's kind of, I don't have a lot of time for them, but
yeah. They don't like thinking about those questions. You ask them, and they're
no,
just like, "Oh, I don't know. It just happened. I don't know." What do you mean it just
because
happened?
there's a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him. He's an English guy, and he used to be, I think, a Jehovah's Witness. But he actually does a video on the ark and basically saying how essentially they'd need two or three arks because if by the time you put elephants and say giraffes on one, you've got to get all their food onto another one. And he worked out all the weights of what the weight and height of the ark, how big it would be, and it's physically impossible to fit all of them and the food and everything onto one. It's
Yeah,
just, and he breaks it all down with the maths and stuff, and yeah,
yeah, because they have the measurements of the ark in the Bible, which you can recreate. It's not that big. We
no,
have the Ark Encounter, who was made by Ken Ham, and it's like a life size, an actual size ark, and there's a museum inside of it, but it doesn't hold nearly, like, not even a fraction of the amount of animals on the planet.
yeah, all right. How
But
big is it?
still, thinks it's real. What?
Do you know how big it actually is?
No, not off the top of my head.
Because I know in the Bible it says cubits and that, but I'll look it up anyway a bit later on. But yeah, I just think it's funny that you know people like yourself and that are open to, like you said, you're reading the Bible and you're open to that sort of stuff, whereas it doesn't go the other way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, it's not much you can do about that.
Some people just
I
like
did,
living in their delusions.
yeah, I did see you posted something up on YouTube about where you're talking about. Is it literacism or the what you were mentioning before about what the Bible's actually about? You did a video on that, didn't you?
You have to be a little more specific.
I'm trying to find it. One sec. Here we go. It is linguistics. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
So what is that? I haven't watched that yet. I've got to get to. Is that a chat about what you were mentioning earlier?
yeah, kind of. I'm not an expert in linguistics. I have a friend that I had on the show for that. It is something I studied in college for a little while. It's one of those topics that's really interesting. I never got to really dig into because I read other stuff. Um, but you can see a lot of the effects of linguistics in the Bible because you have books that were written, 800 900 years apart from each other. So language evolves very quickly already. So over 900 years, like you can read the Bible and see how it changes. Like um, there, there are no demons in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament, there's demons everywhere. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's 250 years in between the Old and New Testament. In that 250-year time period, what was seen as evil spirits of God or other deities in the Old Testament became demons that would possess people in the New
Yeah.
Testament.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, it's fascinating to watch how language changes over time, and how it shapes our worldview. And if you're a Christian, your theology. Uh, yeah,
And do you think that comes down to how a lot of people interpret it? Like Matt goes a lot about the slavery and stuff, and people interpret that as indentured servitude. But
yeah,
would that have a lot to do with the way it's written as well?
uh, kind of. The problem is the people who say that are wrong. Um,
Mm.
it's not indentured servitude. It's absolutely the way slavery worked, and I'm not an expert on this either. Um, is it, if you were a Jew, a fellow Jew who was a slave because they enslaved their own people, it was not as bad as it was if you were a non-Jew. But they enslaved a lot more non-Jews and did not treat them well. They were allowed to beat them um, within an inch. They weren't allowed to beat them to death. But the Bible literally says that you can beat them, and if they die the next day of their wounds, then you're good. You didn't technically beat them to death. That's fine. So you can beat them within an inch of their life to the point where they will die the next day of their injuries in slavery. Um, and even the New Testament talks about slavery, especially Paul. There's no condemning of it anywhere in the Bible. So no, this whole, I guess it's an indentured servitude. It's just a way to try to make it more palatable, more easier to digest when Christians talk about the Bible. It's not a pretty picture, but they got to defend it somehow because they're Christians. So yeah,
The someone I heard someone mention the other day on that they were Catholic, and then someone else said, "Well, you don't believe in Yahweh, or whatever." I actually don't know. I was uh, we baptized Roman Catholics, so I don't know the difference between them or Christians. But is there a big difference between Catholic and Christian and
yeah, Catholic and Protestant.
evangelicals and all that?
Oh yeah. Um, so Catholics are have a much more centralized hierarchy. You've got the Vatican that's like the Catholic kingdom, and you have the Pope who's like the king. So that there's this hierarchy, this structure. All money goes to the Vatican, not all of it, but um, I think every priest preaches the same sermon that's written by somebody else. Um, and then just doctrinally, they believe in like transubstantiation, for example, which is when they take communion and they eat the bread and the wine, they
Hmm.
think it literally turns into the flesh and blood of Jesus. And
Yeah.
as soon as it goes, like that's bananas, right?
Yeah.
But that's what they believe. Um, and then and the way Protestantism came about is it started with Martin Luther, who this is the way it worked. If you were a Catholic and you were showing promise, you were showing potential as being like a prodigy, they would actually you were not allowed to read the Bible back in the day. Um, so if they got an eye on you and they were like, oh, this guy has potential, they will let you read it and they'll teach you how to read it, and they'll let you study it. And Martin Luther was like, wait a minute, a lot of the things that we practice is not in this book; it's made up. So he nailed what was called the 99 Theses on the wall of the church, pretty much exposing all of this. This is like the equivalent of a Twitter post saying like, here is all of the bullshit
Yeah,
that they're
right.
telling you, and that's how Lutheranism started, and then Protestantism came out of that, and then even Methodism and Baptists, and it's a lot to go into, but yeah, they're very different.
Yeah, okay. The yeah, I was just gonna I had a oh, so I had some friends that went to. We have a place here called Shalom House, which is a rehab center.
Hmm.
Now the guy that runs it isn't even qualified to be doing it. He's a a recovered meth addict. So what he does is, as soon as you get in there, within 3 days, he turns you into a Christian. Because the first, as soon as you get in there, that's it. You go straight to church for 6 hours, and I think you get up at 6 in the morning. Then you read the Bible, and most of it, and because he's not qualified and doesn't get government funding, it's called holistic rehabilitation, and that's what he does. And the amount of people that have left and not gone back is just, but he gets away with it because the he reckons that the recovery rate is pretty good. But when you look it up, I think they said there's actually only 2% of males actually come out of there recovered. But that's what he does because he doesn't have a formal qualification, and that's how he gets away with it. Which I said to a lot of my mates who do it, I said, why? There's plenty of other places to go. Why would you want to go there? You know. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and then part of their recovery is even when they come out, they still have to, if they go to NA or AA, they still have to write passages down of the Bible and take it with them when they go there. It's just like, so yeah, I don't have a lot of time for that place, or the way, because I interviewed him and he said, no, I'm not qualified. I know what it's like because I've been there, I've done that. So it's like, yeah, okay. And I think it's a shame there's no one that can overrule it or govern it and say, no, you can't do that. It's just,
Yeah.
I think it's that too hard basket. Because you guys will have that same problem there, eh?
Oh yeah. Like it's hard to find a rehab center here that's not inherently Christian, that doesn't start with a prayer. I think Alcoholics Anonymous does it. Even like, yeah, it's hard to find just a secular rehab center or support group. They always have an agenda behind it. It's like, yeah, we'll help you with your addiction, but you got to come to
But
church.
yeah,
Like, why is that part of it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess if you got to take the lesser of two evils, then it's like, well, because when my mum lives about 3 hours away. She's just in a caravan park, and before I got there, about 20 minutes before I get there, on the right hand side of the road, there's about, I think, counted them, 32 different Bible schools that kids can go to. So you drive past and there's one that says, like, what is it, Baptist Children's College. They can go in, they camp there, they learn about it. But there's 32 of them on the way within a 20-minute span of each other. It's just, it's crazy. I just don't know where they get all this funding from and why people are funding them. But obviously, it's something that, like I said, it's not as big. It's not as big a problem here as it is over there. But it's still something that people are just,
It's still a problem.
yeah. Cool, man. All right, well, I'll let you go because you got your kids. I just wanted to jump on and do a bit of a chat with you. Not sure how many people will comment after this when they watch it back. I'll probably get people hitting me up saying, "Oh, everything you said's crap." I said, "Well, you had your chance, you know."
Yeah.
And
Debate me.
it's interesting because one of the guys I know who is my director, he's religious, and the next film he's making is essentially about atheists and theists having a debate, essentially, but as a film. So I sent him a lot of the reference material from like Matt and sort of thing, and he's like, "Oh," I said to use that. I said, "Did you watch it?" He goes, "Yeah, I got about 5 or 10 minutes in, and I could, debunk most of it." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
Well, then call him. Call the
Yeah,
show.
well, that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
He's been doing it for like 25 years.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I was just watching him before you jumped on as well. His latest one with J Mike. So when are you on next?
I don't know when I'm going on the Atheist Experience next. I'm going on Truth Wanted, which is another one of their shows.
Yep. I'll watch all them.
August 14th, and I think, yeah, August 14th. And I'm going on with Secular Rarity. If you'll know who he is, he's going to be coming
Yep.
on my YouTube show.
Okay.
I think next week, or this coming Sunday. Um, yeah, so that's.
The
I
only
think they
one I
want to
don't
get me.
watch. What's that? Keep going.
So I
Sorry.
think they want me on the smaller shows uh,
Yeah.
to get me more used to because I've never done a call-in show before, and then
Okay.
suddenly I was on the call-in show, and I did fine. I was more quiet in the beginning, and I
Mm.
let Matt do all the talking, and then I started getting more comfortable. Um, but they want me to do like smaller shows and get more used to you know taking calls and things.
I
Um,
think I think it's similar with that Forrest Valkai as well. I think he
oh, he's a
he's
natural.
yeah, he was on Atheist, but he does some of the smaller shows as well.
Yeah, he's been on there
Um,
like 4 or 5 times now, in addition to other shows. Yeah, he's a
but the
he's
only
a
one I don't
juggernaut,
watch
man.
is the non-profits. That's the only one I don't watch. I listen to most of the other ones. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot to listen to. I don't get to catch very many of them.
yeah, yeah. All right. Thanks heaps for you taking your time out, and I'll I'll just keep following you on TikTok and YouTube, and I'll hopefully chat again in the future sometime. But
Definitely,
I'll
and
keep in contact with you about the podcast as well.
yeah, definitely hit me up on that. Sounds fun.
No worries. Awesome. Thanks, mate.
All right, see you.
See
Night,
ya.
everybody.